A good carpenter, Cash is. A good carpenter. Addie Bundren could not want a better one. A better box to lie in. It would give her confidence and comfort. I go around the house, followed by the chuck of the ads. Pa sitting on the back porch.
Where's Jewel?
Pa says. When I was a boy, I first learned how much better water tastes when it has set a while in a cedar bucket. Warmish cool, with a faint taste like the hot July wind and cedar tree smells. It has to set at least 6 hours, and be drunk from a gourd. Water should never be drunk from metal. And at night it is better still. I used to lie in the pallet in the hall, waiting till I could hear them all asleep, and I would go back to the bucket. And it would be black, the shelf black, the still surface of the water a round orifice in nothingness, where before I started awake with the dipper, I could see maybe a star or two in the bucket. And in the dipper, a star or two before I drank. Down to the barn, I say, harnessing the team. Down there fooling with that horse. He will go on through the barn and into the pasture. The horse will not be in sight. He is up there among the pine seedlings in the cool. Jewel whistles, once and shrill. The horse snorts, and Jewel sees him, glinting for a gaudy instant among the blue shadows.
Come here, sir.
Jewel says. He moves, moving that quick, his coat bunching, tongue swirling like so many flames, with tossing mane and tail and rolling eye. The horse makes another short, curveting rush and stops again, feet bunched. Watching Jewel. Jewel moves steadily toward him, his hands at his sides. Save for Jewel's legs, they're like two figures, carved for a tableau sauvage in the sun. When Jewel can almost touch him, the horse stands on his hind legs and slashes down at him. Then Jewel is enclosed by a glittering maze of hooves, as by an illusion of wings. Among them, beneath the upraised chest, he moves with the flashing limberness of a snake. They stand in rigid, terrific hiatus, the horse trembling and groaning. Then Jewel is on the horse's back. He throws upward in a stooping swirl, like the lash of a whip. For another moment, the horse stands spraddled before he bursts into motion. They descend down the hill toward the fence, where the horse bunches to a stuttering halt.
Well, you can quit now if you've got a plenty.
Inside the barn, Joe slides, running to the ground before the horse stops. Without looking back, the horse kicks at him, slamming a single hoof into the wall with a pistol-like report. Clinging to the hay rack, Joe lowers his head and peers out across the stall tops and through the doorway. The path is empty. From here, he cannot even hear Cash's sawing. He reaches up and drags down hay in hurried armfuls and crams them into the rack.
Eat.
He says,
Get the goddamn stuff out of sight where you got the chance, you puzzle-gutted bastard. You sweet son of a bitch. It's because he stays out there, right under the window, hammering and sawing on that goddamn box. where she's got to see him, where every breath she draws is full of his knocking and sawing, where she can see him saying, see? See what a good one I'm making for you? I told him to go somewhere else. I said, good God, you want to see her in it? It's like when he was a little boy. She said she had some fertilizer. She would try to raise some flowers. And he'd taken the bread pan and brought it back from the barn full of dung. Because I said if you wouldn't keep sawing and nailing at it till a man can't sleep even. And her hands laying on the quilt like two of them roots dug up and tried to wash and couldn't get them clean. I could see the fan in Dewey Dell's arm. I said if you just let her alone, sawing and knocking and keeping the air always moving so fast in her face that when you're tired you can't breathe it. And that goddamn ad's going one lick less. One lick less. One lick less until everybody that passes in the road will have to stop and see it and say, what a fine carpenter he is. Well, if it'd just been me when Cash fell off that church, if it'd just been me when Paul laid sick with that load of wood fell on him, it would not be happening with every bastard in the county coming in to stare at her. Because if there is a God, what the hell is he for? It'd just be me and her on a high hill. And me rolling the rocks down the hill at their faces, picking them up and throwing them down the hill, faces and teeth and all, by God, until she was quiet. And not that goddamn ad's going one lick less. One lick less, and we can be quiet.
We watch him come around the corner and mount the steps. He does not look at us.
You ready?
If you're hitched up, I say, wait! He stops and looks at Pa. Pa rubs his hand slowly on his knees. He's gazing out beyond the crest of the bluff across the land.
I mislike undecision as much as e'er a man.
It means $3, I say. The shirt across Pa's hump is faded lighter than the rest of it. There's no sweat stain on Pa's shirt. I've never seen a sweat stain on Pa's shirt. He was sick once from working in the sun when he was 22 years old, and he tells people if he ever sweats, he will die. I suppose he believes it.
But if she don't last until you get back, she will be disappointed. She's counting on it. She'll want to start right away. I know her. I promised her I'd keep the team here and ready, and she's counting on it.
We'll need that $3 then, sure. You better make up your mind soon so we can get there and get a load on before it gets dark.
Ma, ain't that sick? Shut up, Darl.
Jules' eyes look like pale wood in his high-blooded face. He's a head taller than any of the rest of us. He always was. I told him that's why Ma whipped and petted him more, because he's always peekling around the house more. That's why she named him Jewel. I told them.
Shut up, Jewel.
You could borrow the loan of Vernon's team, and we could catch up with you, I say. If she didn't wait for us.
I'll shut your goddamn mouth.
She'll want to go in arm. Don't e'er a man mislike it more.
It's laying there, watching Cash win on that damn...
Jewel says. He says it harshly and savagely, but he does not say the word. Like a little boy in the dark to flail his courage and suddenly aghast into silence by his own noise.
She wanted that. Like she wants to go in our own way. She'll rest easier for knowing it's a good one. And private. She was ever a private woman, you know it well.
Well, then let it be private. But how the hell do you
Fixing up to rain.
Pop says.
I am a luckiest man I ever have been. It's that darn doctor, liable to come at any time. If he was to come tomorrow and tell her the time was nigh, she wouldn't wait. I know her, wagon or no wagon, she wouldn't wait. And then she'd be upset, and I wouldn't upset her for the living world. That family burying ground in Jefferson, them are her blood waiting for her there. She'll be impatient. I promised my word. Me and the boys would get her there quick as mules could walk it so she could rest quiet. Don't e'er a man mislike it more.
Everybody wasn't burning in hell to get her there. All day long, Cash went under the window, hammering and sawing.
It was her wish. You got no affection or gentleness for her, you never have had. We would be beholden to no man, me and her. We have never yet been. And she will rest quieter for knowing it. And was her own blood. sawed out the boards and drove the nails. She was every one to clean up after herself.
It's $3, I say. Do you want us to go or not? We'll be back by tomorrow sundown.
Well,
Pa says. He looks out across the land.
Come on.
by sundown now.
Pa says.
I would not keep her waiting.
Jewel glances back before he goes around the corner of the house. I enter the hall and I hear the voices before I reach the front door. Tilting a little down the hill as our house does, a breeze draws through the hall all the time, up slanting. A feather dropped by the front door will rise and brush across the ceiling, slanting backwards until it reaches the down-turning current at the back door. And so with the voices. When you enter the hall, you can hear them speaking out of the air about your head.
The first time me and Leif picked on down the road, Pa doesn't sweat because he will catch his death from the sickness. So everybody that comes to help. And Jewel don't care about anything. He's not kin to us and Karen. Not care kin. And Cash. Like sawing the long, hot, sad yellow days up into planks and nailing them to something. And Pa thinks because neighbors will always treat one another that way, because he has always been too busy letting neighbors do for him to find out. I did not think that Darl would, that sits at the supper table with his eyes gone further than the food and the lamp, full of the land dug out of his skull, and the holes filled with the distance beyond the land. We picked on down the road, the woods getting closer and closer, and the secret shade, picking on into the secret shade with my sack and Leif's sack. Because I said, will I or won't I, when the sack was half full. Because I said, if the sack is full, when we get to the woods, it won't be me. I said, if it don't mean for me to do it, the sack will not be full, and I will turn up the next row. But if the sack is full, I cannot help it. It will be that I had to do it all the time, and I cannot help it. We picked on towards the secret shade, and our eyes were drowned together, touching on his hands and my hands. And I didn't say anything. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said,
I'm picking into your sack.
And so it was full when we got to the end of the row. And I could not help it. And so it was, because I could not help it. It was then. And then I saw Darl.
And he knew.
He said,
He knew.
without words, like he told me Ma is going to die.
Without the words.
And I knew he knew. Because if he had told me with words, I would not believe that he had been there and saw us. But he said,
He did know.
And I said, are you going to tell Pa? Are you going to kill him? Without the words, I said it, and he said, why?
Without the words.
That's why I can talk to him, knowing. With hating.
Because he knows.
He stands in the door looking at her. What you want, Darl, I say.
She is going to die.
He says. When is she going to die, I say.
Before we get back.
Then why are you taking Jewel, I say.
I want him to help me load. Vardaman comes up the hill carrying a fish. Not as long as he is. He slings it to the ground and he grunts and spits over his shoulder like a man.
What's that, a hog? Where'd you get it?
Down to the bridge.
He says. He turns it over, the underside caked over with dust where it is wet. The eye coated over, humped under the dirt.
You aim to leave it laying there?
I aim to show it to Ma.
He says nothing, watching the door. Then he looks down at the fish, and he turns it over with his foot and prods at the eye bump with his toe, gouging at it. Pa looks out across the land, and Vardaman looks at Pa's face, and then at the door. He turns, going around toward the corner of the house, when Pa calls him without looking around.
You clean that fish.
Why can't Dewey Dale clean it?
You clean that fish.
Oh, Pa.
You clean it.
Pa says. He doesn't look around. Vardaman comes back and picks up the fish, and it slides out of his hand, smearing wet dirt onto him. It flops down, dirtying itself again. Gap-mouthed, goggle-eyed, hiding into the dust, as if it were ashamed of being dead. As if it were in a hurry to get back hid again. Vardaman cusses it. He cusses it like a grown man standing astraddle of it.
You puzzle-gutted bastard! Sweet son of a bitch!
Darn that road. And it fixing up to rain, too. I can stand here and seem to see it with second sight. They're shutting down behind them like a wall. They're shutting down betwixt them and my given promise. I do the best I can. As much as I get my mind on anything, but darn them boys. Laying there, right up to my door, where every bad luck that comes and goes is bound to find him. I told Daddy it wasn't any luck living on the road when they come by here. And she said, for the world like a woman, get up and move then. But I told her there wasn't no luck in it, because the Lord put roads for traveling. Why laid them down flat on the earth? When he aims for something to be always a-moving, he makes it long ways like a road, or a horse, or a wagon. But when he aims for something to stay put, he makes it up and down ways like a tree, or a man. So he never aimed for folks to live on the road. Because which gets there first, I says, the road or the house? Did you ever know him to put a road down by a house, I says? No, you never, I says, because it's always men can't rest till he gets the house put where everybody that passes in a wagon can spit in the doorway, keeping the folks restless, wanting to get up and go somewhere else. When he aimed for them to stay put, like a tree, or stay in the corner. Because if he'd aimed for a man to always be moving and going somewhere else, wouldn't he have put him long ways on his belly like a snake? Stands to reason he would. Putting it where every bad luck prowling can find it and come straight to my door. Charging me taxes on top of it. making me pay for Cash to have to get them carpenter notions. When there hadn't been no road come there, he wouldn't have got 'em. Falling off of churches, lifting no hand for 6 months. And me and Addie slaving and slaving when there's plenty of sawing on this place he could do if he's got the saw, making me pay for it. She was well and hale as e'er a woman ever were, except for that road. Just laying down, resting herself in her own bed, asking naught and none. Are you sick, Addie? I said.
I am not sick.
She said. You lay you down and rest you, I said. Now, no, you are not sick, you're just tired. You lay you down and rest.
I am not sick.
She said.
I will get up.
You lay still and rest, I said. You're just tired. You get up tomorrow. And she was laying there, well and hale as e'er a woman ever were, except for that road.
Spring round the roses, pocket full of posies.
In the afternoon, when school was out, and the last one had left with his little dirty snuffling nose, instead of going home, I would go down the hill to the spring, where I could be quiet and hate them. I could just remember how my father used to say that the reason for living was getting ready to stay dead a long time. And when I would have to look at them, day after day, each with his and her secret and selfish thought, and blood, strange to each other blood and strange to mine, and think that this seemed to be the only way I could get ready to stay dead. I would hate my father for having ever planted me. I would look forward to the times when they faltered so I could whip them. When the switch fell, I could feel it upon my flesh. When it welted and ridged, it was my blood that ran. And I would think, with each blow of the switch, now you are aware of me. Now I am something in your secret and selfish life who have marked your blood with my own forever and ever. And so I took ants. I saw him pass the schoolhouse 3 or 4 times before I learned
That he was driving 4 miles out of his way to do it.
I noticed then how he was beginning to hump, a tall man and young, so that he looked already like a tall bird hunched in the cold weather on the wagon seat.
He would pass the schoolhouse,
The wagon creaking slow,
his head turning slow to watch the door of the schoolhouse as the wagon passed,
until he went on around the curve.
and out of sight.
One day I went to the door and stood there when he passed. When he saw me,
He looked quickly away and did not look back again.
in the early spring it was worst. Sometimes I thought that I could not bear it lying in bed at night with the wild geese going north, and their honking coming faint and high and wild out of the wild darkness. And during the day it would seem as though I couldn't wait for the last one to go so I could go down to the spring. And so when I looked up that day and saw ants,
Standing there in his Sunday clothes, turning his hat round and round in his hand,
I said, if you've got any women folks, why in the world will they make you get your hair cut?
I ain't got none.
He said. Then he said suddenly, driving his eyes at me like 2 hounds in a strange yard.
That's what I come to see you about.
And make you hold your shoulders up, I said. You haven't got any, but you've got a house. They tell me you've got a house and a good farm. And you live there alone, doing for yourself, do you? He just looked at me.
Turning his hat in his hand.
A new house, I said. Are you going to get married? And he said again, holding his eyes to mine,
That's what I come to see you about.
later he told me,
I ain't got no people, so that won't be no worry to you. I don't reckon you could say the same.
no, I have people in Jefferson.
Well, I got a little property. I'm four-handed. I got a good honest name. I know how townsfolk are, but maybe when they talk to
Or they
me...
might listen, I said, but they'll be hard to talk to. They're in the cemetery.
But your living kin, well, they'll be different.
Will they? I said. I don't know. I never had any other kind. And so I took ants.
Now I got to pay for it? Me, without a tooth in my head? It's hoping to get ahead enough where I could get my mouth fixed so I could eat God's own victuals as a man should. And her hail and well is there a woman in the land until that day. Got to pay for being put to the need of that $3. Got to pay for the way for them boys to have to go away to earn it. And now I can see, same as second sight, the rain shutting down betwixt us, coming up that road like a darn man, like there weren't e'er other house to rain on in all the living land. I've heard men cuss their luck, and right, for they were sinful men. But I do not say it is a curse on me, because I have done no wrong to be cussed by. I'm not religious, I reckon, but peace is my heart. I know it is. I've done things, but neither better nor worse than them that pretends other like. And I know that that old master will care for me as for e'er a sparrow that falls. But it seems hard that a man in his need could be so flouted by a rogue.
And when I knew that I had cash, I knew that living was terrible and that this was the answer to it. That was when I learned that words are no good, that words...
Don't ever fit even what they are trying to say at.
When he was born, I knew that motherhood was invented by someone that had to have a word for it, because the ones that had the children didn't care.
Whether there was a word for it or not.
I knew that fear was invented by someone that never had the fear. Pride that never had the pride. I knew that it had been. Not that they had dirty noses, but that we had had to use one another by words, like spiders dangling by their mouths on a beam, swinging and twisting and never touching. And that only through the blows of the switch could my blood and their blood flow as one stream. I knew that it had been, not that my aloneness had to be violated over and over each day, but that it had never been violated until cash came. Not even by ants in the nights. He had a word, too.
Love.
He called it. But I had been used to words for a long time. I knew that that word was like the others, just a shape to fill a lack. And that when the right time came, you wouldn't need a word for that any more than for pride or fear. Cash did not need to say it to me,
Nor I to him.
so that I would say, let Ants use it if he wants to. So that it was Ants
Or love. Love.
or Ants. It didn't matter. I would think that even while I lay with him in the dark, and Cash asleep in the cradle within the swing of my hand, I would think that if he were to wake and cry, I would suckle him too. Ants,
Or love.
it didn't matter. My aloneness had been violated and then made whole again by the violation.
Time.
Ants,
Love.
what you will. Outside the circle.
I made it on the bevel. There is more surface for the nails to grip. There is twice the gripping surface to each seam. Water will have to seep into it on a slant. Water moves easiest up and down or straight across. In a house, people are upright 2/3 of the time. So the seams and joints are made up and down because the stress is up and down. In a bed where people lie down all the time, the joints and seams are made sideways because the stress is sideways. Except a body is not square like a cross tie. Animal magnetism. The animal magnetism of a dead body makes the stress come slanting, so the seams and joints of a coffin are made on the bevel. You can see by an old grave that the earth sinks down on the bevel, while in a natural hole it sinks by the center, the stress being up and down. So I made it on the bevel. It makes a neater job.
Then I found that I had Darl. At first I would not believe it. Then I believed that I would kill Ants. It was as though he had tricked me,
Hidden within a word.
like within a paper screen, and struck me in the back through it. But then I realized that I had been tricked by words older than Ants,
Or love.
and that the same word had tricked Ants too. And that my revenge would be that he would never know I would be taking revenge. And when Darl was born, I asked Ants to promise
Promise.
to take me back to Jefferson when I died.
Die.
Because I knew that Father had been right, even when he couldn't have known he was right any more than I could have known I was wrong.
Nonsense.
Ants said,
You and me ain't nigh done chapping yet. With just two.
he did not know that he was dead then. Sometimes I would lie by him in the dark, hearing the land that was now my blood and flesh, and I would think,
Ants.
why Ants?
Why are you ants?
I would think about his name,
Until after a while I could see the word as a shape.
a vessel, and I would watch him liquefy and flow into it like cold molasses flowing out of the darkness into the vessel.
Until the jar stood full and motionless.
And then I would find that I had forgotten the name of the jar. I would think,
The shape of my body, where I used to be a virgin, is in the shape of a
and I couldn't think,
ants.
couldn't remember.
Ants.
It was not that I could think of myself as no longer unvirgin.
Because I was 3 now.
And when I would think
Cash,
and
Darl,
that way
until their names would die
and solidify into a shape,
and fade away.
I would say, all right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they call them.
In a strange room, you must empty yourself for sleep. And before you are empty for sleep, what are you? And when you are filled with sleep, you are not. I don't know what I am. I don't know if I am or not. Jewel knows he is because he does not know that he does not know whether he is or not. He cannot empty himself for sleep because he is not what he is, and he is what he is not. Beyond the unlamped wall, I can hear the rain shaping the wagon that is ours. The load that is no longer theirs, that fell and sawed it, nor yet theirs that bought it, lie in our wagon, though it does, since only the wind and the rain shape it to Jewel and me, who are not asleep. And since sleep is not, and rain and wind are was, it is not. And Jewel is, and the wagon is, because when the wagon is, was, Addie Bundren will not be. And Jewel is, so Addie Bundren must be. And then I must be, or I could not empty myself for sleep in a strange room. And then if I am not emptied yet, I am is. Often I have lain beneath rain on a strange roof, thinking of home.
I gave Ants the children. I did not ask for them. I did not even ask him for what he could have given me, not Ants. That was my duty to him, to not ask that, and that duty I fulfilled. I would be I. I would let him be the shape and echo of his word. And then he died. He did not know he was dead. I would lie by him in the dark, hearing the dark land, talking of God's love and his beauty and his sin, hearing the dark voicelessness in which the words are the deeds, and the other words that are not deeds, that are just the gaps in people's lacks, coming down like the cries of the geese out of the wild darkness in the old terrible nights, fumbling at the deeds like orphans, to whom are pointed out in a crowd 2 faces and told, that is your father, your mother. I believed that I had found it. I believed that the reason was the duty to the alive, to the terrible blood, the red, bitter flood boiling through the land. I would think of sin as I would think of the clothes we both wore in the world's face.
Of the circumspection necessary.
Because he was he, and I was I. The sin the more utter and terrible.
Since he was the instrument ordained by God who created the sin to sanctify that sin he had created.
While I waited for him in the woods, waiting for him before he saw me, I would think of him as dressed in sin. I would think of him as thinking of me as dressed also in sin. He the more beautiful, since the garment which he had exchanged for sin was sanctified. I would think of the sin as garments, which we would remove in order to shape and coerce the terrible blood to the forlorn echo of the dead word high in the air. Then I would lay with ants again.
I did not lie to him,
I just refused.
just as I refused my breast to Cash and Darrell when their time was up.
Hearing the dark land talking the voiceless speech. I hid nothing.
I tried to deceive no one.
I would not have cared. I merely took the precautions that he thought necessary for his sake, not for my safety, but just as I wore clothes.
In the world's face.
Then it was over. Over in the sense that he was gone. And I knew that, see him again though I would never again see him, coming swift and secret to me in the woods, dressed in sin, like a gallant garment, already blowing aside with the speed of his secret coming. But for me, it was not over. I mean over in the sense of beginning and ending. Because to me there was no beginning nor ending to anything then. My children were of me alone, of the wild blood boiling along the earth, of me and of all that lived, of none and of all. Then I found that I had Jewel. When I waked to remember to discover it, he was 2 months gone.
Because if there is a God, what the hell is he for? It would just be me and her on a high hill, and me rolling the rocks down the hill at their faces, picking them up and throwing them down the hill, faces and teeth and all by God! Till she was quiet. And not that goddamn ad's going one lick less. One lick less. And we could be quiet.
That night I found Mom.
Sitting beside the bed where he was sleeping in the dark.
She cried hard. Maybe because she had to cry so quiet. Maybe because she felt the same way about tears as she did about deceit.
Hating herself for doing it. Hating him because she had to.
And it was then that I knew. And I knew that as plain on that day as I knew about Dewey Dell on that day.
My father said that the reason for living is getting ready to stay dead. I knew at last what he meant, and that he couldn't have known himself what he meant, because a man cannot know anything about cleaning up the house afterward. And so, I have cleaned my house. With Jewel, I lay by the lamp, watching him cap and suture it before he breathed. The wild blood boiled away, and the sound of it ceased. Then there was only the milk, warm and calm, and I lying calm in the slow silence, getting ready to clean my house. I gave Aunt's Dewey Dell to Negative Jewel.
When I used to sleep with Vardaman, I had a nightmare once. I thought I was awake, but I couldn't see and I couldn't feel the bed under me. And I couldn't think what I was. I couldn't think of my name. I couldn't even think I am a girl. I couldn't even think or think I want to wake up. Nor remember the opposite, to awake so I could do that. I knew that something was passing, but I couldn't even think of time. All of a sudden, I knew that something was. It was the wind blowing over me. It was like the wind came and blew me back from where it was I was not. Blowing the room and Vardaman asleep and all of them back under me again. And going on like a piece of cool silk dragging across my naked legs.
Then I gave him Vardaman to replace the child I had robbed him of.
Vardaman comes around the house, bloody as a hog to his knees. That air fish chopped up with the axe like as not. Or maybe throwed away for him to lie about the dogs at it. Well, I reckon there ain't no call to expect no more of him than of his man-growed brothers. He comes along watching the house, quiet, sits on the steps. Phew, he says.
I'm pure tired.
Go wash them hands, I say. But couldn't no woman strove harder than Addie to make them right, man and boy, I'll say that for her.
It was full of blood and guts as a hog.
He says. But I can't seem to get no heart into anything. This weather is sapping me too.
Pa,
He says.
is Ma sick some more?
Go wash them hands, I say. I can't seem to get no heart into it.
And now he has 3 children that are his and not mine. And then I could get ready to die.
Jewel, I say. The robe vanishes beneath the wagon as though it were a ribbon, and the front axle were a spool. Did you know she's going to die, Jewel? She's going to die. It takes 2 people to make you and 1 people to die. That's how the world's going to end. And I said to Dewey Dell, you wanted to die so you can get to town, is that it? She wouldn't say what we both knew. The reason you will not say it, even to yourself, is when you say it, you will know it's true. But you know it is true now? I can almost tell you the day when you knew it was true. Why would you say it, even to yourself? She won't say it, she just keeps on saying.
Are you going to tell Paul? Are Are you gonna kill him?
You cannot believe it is true because you cannot believe that Dewey Dale Bundren could have such bad luck. Sun, an owl above the horizon, it's poised like a bloody egg upon a crest of thunderheads. The light has turned copper, and the eye portentous, and the nose sulphurous, smelling of lightning. Jewel, I say! She's going to die, Jewel. Addie Bundren is going to die.
Pa!
Pa stands beside the bed. From behind Pa's leg, Vardaman peers.
His mouth beginning to open.
She looks at him. All her failing life seems to drain into her eyes, urgent, irremediable.
It's Jules she wants.
Dewey Dale says.
Why, Addie,
Pa says.
him and Darrell went to make one more load. They thought there was time, that you would wait for them. And that $3 and
He
all,
stoops
laying his hands on hers.
for a moment still. She looks up at him, without reproach, without anything at all, as if her eyes alone are listening to the irrevocable cessation of his voice. Then she raises herself, who has not moved in 10 days. Dewey Dale leans down, trying to press her back.
Ma!
She says,
Ma!
she's looking out the window at Cash, stooping steadily over the board in the failing light, laboring on towards darkness and into it, as if the stroking of the saw illumined its own motion. Board and saw engendered.
Hugh,
She
Cash!
shouts, harsh, strong, and unimpaired.
Hugh, Cash!
He looks up at the gaunt face, framed by the window in the twilight. It is a composite picture of all time since he was a child.
He drops the saw and lifts the board for her to see.
Looking at the window in which the face had not moved,
He drags a second plank into position.
shaping with his empty hand in pantomime a finished box. For a while yet, she looks down at him from the composite picture, neither with censure nor approbation. Then she disappears. She leans back and turns her head without so much as glancing at Pa. She looks at Vardaman. Her eyes, the life in them, rushing suddenly upon them. The two flames glare up for a steady instant,
Then they go out.
as though someone had leaned down and blown upon them.
Ma?
Dale says.
Ma?
Leaning above the bed, her hands lifted a little, the fan still moving as it has for 10 days. She begins to keen. Her voice is harsh, young, strong. The fan still steadily moving up and down. Behind Pa's leg, Vardaman appears,
His mouth full open.
and all the color draining from his face.
Into his mouth.
He begins to move slowly backwards from the bed,
His eyes round.
this pale face fading into the dusk like a piece of paper pasted on a failing wall.
And go out the door.
Pa leans beside the bed in the twilight, his humped silhouette, partaking of that owl-like quality of an awry-feathered, disgruntled outrage, within which lurks a quality too profound, or too inert, for even thought.
Darn them boys.
He says. Cash comes to the door carrying the saw. Pa stands beside the bed, humped, his arms dangling.
She's gone.
Cash says.
She taken and left us.
Pa says. Cash does not listen.
How nigh are you done?
Pa says. He enters the room, carrying the saw.
I reckon you better get at it. Them two boys run off that way. You'll have to do the best you can.
He's looking down at her face. He's not listening to Pa at all. He does not approach the bed. He stops in the middle of the floor. The saw against his leg, his sweating arms powdered lightly with sawdust. His face composed.
If you get in it tight, maybe some of them will get here tomorrow and help you. Vernon could.
Cash is not listening. He's looking down at her peaceful, rigid face fading into the dusk, as if darkness were the precursor of the ultimate earth, until at last it seems to float, detached upon it, lightly as the reflection of a dead leaf.
There is Christians enough to help you.
Pa says. After a while, Cash turns without so much as glancing at Pa and leaves the room. The saw begins to snore again.
They will help us in our sorrow.
Pa says.
Get up now. Put supper on. Got to keep our strength up. Cash will have to eat quick. Get back to work so he can finish it in time.
Pa stands beside the bed, humped, dangle-armed, motionless.
He raises his hand to his head.
Scouring his hair, listening to the sound of the saw. He comes nearer and rubs his hand
Palm and back.
on his thigh. And he lays it on her face. And then on the hump of the quilt where her hands are.
He touches the quilt,
As he saw Dewey Dale do,
trying to smooth it up to the chin.
but disarranging it instead.
He smooths it again,
Clumsily, his hand awkward as a claw,
smoothing at the wrinkles that he made.
which continue to emerge with perverse ubiquity, until at last he desists,
His hand falling to his side,
and stroking itself again
palm and back.
on his thigh. The sound of the saw snows steadily into the room. Pa breathes a quiet rasping sound, mouthing the snuff against his gums.
God's will be done.
Pa says.
Now I can get them teeth.
She's dead, June. Addie Bundren is dead.
I can feel where the fish was in the dust. It is cut up into pieces of not fish now, not blood on my hands and overalls. Then it wasn't so. It hadn't happened then. And now she's getting so far ahead, I cannot catch her. The top of the barn comes swooping up out of the twilight. If I jump, I can go through it, like the pink lady in the circus, into the warm smelling, without having to wait. I'm running, cannot see, running in the sucking dust. I strike, I throw it away, and I can cry. It does not make so much noise now.
Where's Vardaman?
I don't know. I ain't seen him. You come into supper.
big fish Bud caught, sister?
I ain't never had no time to cook it.
Well, you ought to took time. Where's Vardaman?
I can't find him.
Here now, never mind about the fish. It'll save, I reckon. Come on, sit down.
I ain't minding it. I'm gonna go milk before it sets into rain.
The cow is standing in the barn door chewing. When she sees me coming to the lot, she lows, her mouth full of flopping green, her tongue flopping. I ain't a-going to milk you. I ain't a-going to do nothing for them. I hear her turn when I pass. When I turn, she is just behind me with her sweet, hot, hard breath. Didn't I tell you I wouldn't? She nudges me, snuffing. She moans deep inside, her mouth closed. I jerk my hand, cursing her like Jewel does. Get now! I am not crying now. I am not anything. Dewey Dale comes to the hill and calls me.
Vardaman!
I'm not anything. I am quiet.
You, Vardaman!
I can cry quiet now, feeling and hearing my tears.
The cow breathes upon my hips and back. Her breath warm, sweet, stertorous, moaning. The sky lies flat down the slopes, upon the secret clumps. Beyond the hill, sheet lightning stains upward and fades. The dead air shapes the dead earth in the dead darkness. Further away than seeing shapes the dead earth. It lies dead and warm upon me, touching me naked through my clothes. I said, you don't know what worry is. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm worrying or not, whether I can or not. I don't know whether I can cry or not. I don't know whether I've tried to or not. I feel like a wet seed wild in the hot, blind earth.
When they get it finished, they're going to put her in it. And for a long time, I couldn't say it. I saw the dark stand up and go whirling away. And I said, are you going to nail her up in it, Cash? Cash! Cash! I got shut up in the crib. The new door, it was too heavy for me. I couldn't breathe because the rat was breathing up all the air. And I said, are you going to nail it shut, Cash? Nail it? Nail it? Pa walks around. His shadow walks around over Cash, going up and down above the saw at the bleeding plank. Pa walks around. His shadow walks around. It was not her. I was there looking. I saw. I thought it was her, but it was not. It was not my mother. She went away when the other one laid down in the bed and drew the quilt up. She went away. Did she go as far as town? She went further than town. Did all those rabbits and possums go further than town? God made the rabbits and the possums. He made the train. Why must he make a different place for them to go if she is just like the rabbits? Pa walks around. His shadow does. The The saw sounds like it is asleep. And so, if she is not a rabbit, Cash is going to nail it up. And so if she lets him, it is not her. I know. I saw when it did not be her. I saw. They think it is, and Cash is going to nail it up. It was not her because it was laying right yonder in the dirt. And now it's all chopped up. I chopped it up. It's laying in the kitchen, in the bleeding pan, waiting to be cooked and ate. Then it wasn't, and she was, and now it is, and she wasn't. And tomorrow it will be cooked and ate, and she will be him, and Pa, and Cash, and Dewey Dell, and there won't be anything in the box, and so she can breathe. It was laying right yonder on the ground. I can get Vernon. He was there, and he seen it. And with both of us, it will be, and then it will not be.
It's not your horse that's dead, Jewel, I say.
God damn you.
He says.
God damn you!
I cannot love my mother because I have no mother. Jewel's mother is a horse.
God damn him. God damn him.
My mother is a fish.
I feel like a wet seed wild in the hot, blind earth.
It won't balance. If you want it to tote and ride on a balance, we will have
Pick up, goddamn you, pick up!
I'm telling you, it won't tote, and it won't ride on a
Pick
balance.
up, goddamn you, thick nose soul of hell, pick up!
It won't balance. If you want it to tote and ride on a balance, we will have
Pick
to...
up, goddamn you, pick up!
My mother is a fish.
No man mislikes it more than me.
Jewel, I say.
I made it on the bevel.
I said, you don't know what worry is.
Pick up, goddamn you, pick up!
My mother is a fish.
No man mislikes it more than me.
Jewel, I
I
say.
made it on the bevel.
I said, you don't know what worry is.
Goddamn you, pick up!
My mother is a fish.
No man mislikes it more than me.
Jewel,
No
I
man
say.
mislikes it more than me.
Jewel, I
No
say.
man mislikes it more than me.
Jewel, I say.
Pick up,
No man
goddamn you, pick
mislikes
up!
it more.
Jewel, I say.
No man
Goddamn you,
mislikes it
pick
more.
up!
No
Jewel, I
man-
say. It's not your horse that's dead.
I would think how words go straight up in a thin line, quick and harmless, and how terribly doing goes along the earth, clinging to it, so that after a while the two lines are too far apart for the same person to straddle from one to the other, and that sin and love and fear are just sounds that people who have never sinned, nor loved, nor feared have, for what they never had and cannot have, until they forget the words.
Pa and Cash are coming down the hill. But Jewel is going to the barn.
Jewel,
Pa says Jewel does not stop.
where are you going?
Pa says, but Jewel does not stop.
You leave that horse here.
Pa says Jewel stops. Jewel looks at Pa. His eyes look like marbles.
You leave that horse here.
Pa says,
We'll all ride in the wagon with Ma like she wanted.
but my mother is a fish. Vernon seen it. He was there.
Jewel's mother is a horse.
Darrell says. Then mine can be a fish, can't it, Darrell? I said. Jewel is my brother. Then mine will have to be a horse too, I said.
Why?
Darrell said.
If Pa is your pa, why does your ma have to be a horse just because Jewel's is?
Why does it? I said. Why does it, Darrell? Darrell is my brother. What is your ma, Darrell? I said.
I haven't got one.
Darrell said.
Because if I had one, it is was. And if it is was, it can't be is, can it?
No, I said.
Then I am not.
Darrell said.
Am I?
No, I said. I am. You are my brother, but you are, Darl.
I know it.
Darl said.
That's why I am not is. Are is too many for one woman to fold.
Cash is carrying his toolbox. Pa looks at him.
I'll stop at Toll's on the way back.
Cash says.
Get on that barn roof.
It ain't respectful.
Pa says.
It's a deliberate flouting of her and of me.
Do you want him to come all the way back up here and carry us all back to Toll's afoot?
Darl says. Pa looks at Darl, his mouth chewing. Pa shaves every day now because my mother is a fish.
It ain't right.
Dewey Dale has the package in her hand. She has the basket with our dinner, too.
What's that?
Pa says.
Mrs. Toll's cakes?
Dewey Dale says. Getting into the wagon.
I'm taking them to town for her.
It ain't right.
Pa says.
It's a flouting of the dead. I told him not to bring that horse out of respect for his dead ma. Because it wouldn't look right, him prancing along on a darn circus animal, and her wanting us all to be in the wagon with her that sprung from her flesh and blood. We hadn't no more than passed Toll's Lane when Darrell begun to laugh. Sitting back there on the plank seat with Cash with his dead ma lying at her feet, laughing. How many times I told him that's doing such things as that makes folks talk about him.
Darl is my brother. My brother Darl.
I don't know whether I can cry or not. I don't know whether I've tried to or not. I feel like a wet sea wild.
Are made on the bevel. You can see by an old grave that the earth sinks down on the bevel, while in a natural hole.
I couldn't breathe. And so if she lets him, it is not her. I know. I saw when it did not be her. I saw. She is not a wretch. So she is not.
But for me, it was not over. I mean, over in a sense of beginning and ending. Because to me, there was no beginning nor ending to anything then. My children were of me alone. Of me and of all that lived. Of none and of all.
It's hard country on man. It's hard. 8 miles of the sweat of his body, washed up out in the Lord's earth where the Lord himself told him to put it. Nowhere in this sinful world can an honest, hard-working man profit. It takes them that runs the stores in the towns, living off them that sweats, doing no sweating. It's not the hard-working man, the farmer. Sometimes I wonder why we keep at it. It's because there is a reward for us above, where they can't take their motors and such. Every man will be equal there. And it will be taken from them that have, and give to them that have not by the Lord. But it's a long way, seems like. It's bad that a man must earn the reward of his right doing by flouting himself and his dead. We drove all the rest of that day. Got to Sampson's at dusk dark. And then that bridge was gone, too. I had never seen the river so high, and it's not done raining yet. There's old men that hadn't ever seen nor heard of it being so in the memory of man. I am chosen of the Lord. For who he loveth, so doeth he chastiseth. But I'd be darned if he don't take some curious ways to show it, seems like. But now I can get them teeth. That will be a comfort.